Welcome back to SEO Stream 2023. The next presentation is one of the best of the day. In my opinion, I think everybody in the conference is going to really enjoy this one because it is the first presentation at, I think, pretty much any SEO conference on using AI for link building, and with the caveat that you don't actually need to be some sort of a tech genius or AI nerd to be able to actually execute all of this. So please welcome to the stage, Stacey, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello. So I'm Stacey. These are mine. So I have 3 sons who are feral and wonderful in equal measure. For fun, I hike up mountains and scramble across mountain ridges, much to the absolute distaste of my mother. And by day, I do SEO, content and link building. So I've been doing SEO now for, since 2009, a long time. Most of the work I do for clients is link building, content creation, that sort of thing. And then for my own sites, I'm doing the lot. So I'm kind of balancing and juggling clients and personal projects at the same time. This year's been bizarre. I think what's happened with AI this year is probably the fastest development in anything I can think of in recent years. Now, those of us in SEO have probably been using AI-powered tools of some sort since way before the beginning of this year. But the progress in generative AI, and I think more interestingly, the almost mainstreaming of AI, has been astronomical this year. My mum uses AI now. She's stopped using Google and she'll just ask AI for answers with questionable success, but still. And when I speak to people in our industry and sort of industries around it, like PR, journalists, people tend to fall into one of 2 camps. There's those who are like really excited about what AI can do for making our jobs a bit easier, making them a little bit faster. And then there's those who are like, oh my God, it's the apocalypse. The AI overlords, they're coming for our jobs. They're going to take all of our jobs. I fall into the former camp. So I'm excited. I'm excited about what AI can do for us, how it can speed things up, how it can take away some of the most cumbersome tasks that we do. And in link building specifically, this is brilliant. So we have a habit, I think, of romanticizing link building a little bit. If we look at case studies these days, they're all pretty much digital PR type case studies. And there's this kind of idea that we sit around a room, we brainstorm some amazing things, magic happens around a table, and then we make something and we publish it and we break the internet. And it kind of romanticizes the idea that link building is this big, fun, creative process. And sure, a really successful viral type digital marketing, digital PR project will be wonderful. But I think that the reality is, if you want scalable, consistent link building, reliable link building, it uses multiple tactics. And if you want to make this sustainable for the long term, link building is really boring. Like, it's a bit crap. There's a lot of tedious, monotonous, laborious, repetitive tasks. And this is where I think AI is coming in incredibly handy. Not at taking over all the strategy and the creative side. It isn't changing how I link build. AI is not giving me ideas for new things I haven't done before. But it's taking away the most boring crap around link building for me, or speeding it up substantially. And I am no tech genius at all. Like, I will break a website quite easily. So this is just using generative AI tools that are out there, designed for the general public, to speed up what you're doing day to day in link building. We've used AI in a lot of ways this year. Some have not worked at all. Some have been pretty catastrophic. But one area in which we've found it to be very successful is in HARO, and sort of expert comment pitching to press. That's been really useful. Whenever I talk about HARO, the first question I generally always get is which tools and platforms are we using? And that's not what I'm here to talk about today, but I will cover it off quickly. I use all these. Now, the first 4 there, HARO, Response Source, Press Plugs, and Helper B2B Writer, they're the ones that I'm using most consistently, every day pretty much. The rest I jump in and out of. The reality is that most of these tools do pretty much the same thing. Journalists sign up, they submit any requests they have for comments, they submit the expertise they want, we all get those expertise requests to our inbox, or we log into a platform and we see them and we pitch them. The main difference between these tools is the quality and quantity of requests and the target territories. So like Response Source, for example, is very UK-centric, HARO much less so. The two that are an exception to this would be Twitter, X, whatever we have to call it now, which obviously is not a specific journal request platform. It's just, well, it's a shit show, isn't it? But you can still find some really decent journal request opportunities there with the journal request hashtag, the PR request hashtag. And the other one there that's slightly different is Pressloft. Now, Pressloft is designed for companies that have retail products, e-commerce companies with very visual products. Interior design, fashion, gifting, things that look nice on a photo. And it has the usual journal request function, but what it also has, which is really good, is the ability for you to just upload your product information. Photos, pricing, description, stock info. And journalists who are doing these roundups that we see in the news all the time now, like the greatest Christmas presents for every single human that ever existed, go in, they browse and download images. Now, in some cases, they contact you, they want a sample or they want to ask some questions. But in plenty of cases, I've had an email saying someone's downloaded some photos and a few days later, a product link in it, a great publication goes live. So that's really quite handy. But I'm not going to talk about tools today. The first thing I'm going to say is I do not use AI to write the comments that I'm pitching. I don't use AI for that purpose at all. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I'm still writing manually, or someone in my team's still writing manually, because it doesn't save much time to use AI for that. The comments that journalists are asking for, they're typically short. It's a few lines. They don't want war and peace. So by the time I've written the prompt, given AI the information, got the prompt back out, got the output back out, edited it, given it some personality, fact-checked it, I haven't saved any time. And those things are necessary, because one thing that AI is terrible at with content is personality. If you ask AI to write something in a friendly tone of voice, you're going to get the same stuff you asked for without that, but it'll say, hey there, at the start, and good luck at the end, and there'll be more exclamation marks. It doesn't have a personality or a tone of voice. So if you're submitting comments to a journalist for a big national press outlet, you're going to have to edit anyway. And that means you don't really save any time. And the second reason that I'm doing it that way is because that's what journalists want. You see this increasingly now. We see the end of requests from journalists saying, no AI comments, please. And yeah, okay, we could probably get away with it. We can probably get AI comments that read like they were written by a human, a boring human. We can probably get AI comments that, would pass AI generative text sort of testing machines. But why? When I deal with a journalist through a platform like Response Source or HARO, I'm not just hoping for that first link. I'm hoping instead, actually, for lots of links. I'm hoping to get them coming back to me in future. I've got more clients with more experts. I've got my own projects with multiple experts associated. I'm not after one link. I'm after a sort of transactional working relationship where they get exactly what they need from me and I get the links in these really big publications. So that's what I want out of it. And that means giving the journalists what they want as well. But AI is incredibly useful in other ways. And I'm going to warn you in advance, there's a lot of friendly, cute-looking robots in this, because that in my head is what I'm telling myself AI is. It's like Wall-E. It's really easy to waste time with expert comment pitching. Every single time you pitch a journalist and don't get something live, it's just a complete waste of time. And it's really easy to just lose track of time. It's really easy to spend 10 minutes writing a comment, have it go live and think, brilliant, that only took me 10 minutes. But it didn't. If you've pitched 5 and got 1 live, it took you all the time it took to pitch all 5. So I started tracking this in 2018. We started tracking for clients and our own projects all the time that we spent on any activity associated with journo pitching for expert comments, and dividing it by the number of links that went live. That simple. And in 2018, it was like 3/4 of an hour, 45 minutes or so. And I wasn't really bothered. I didn't know whether it was good or bad. It was still quite new to me as a concept. It was quicker than some things I was doing. It was slower than other things I was doing. Yeah, whatever, don't mind. In 2019, it got slower, 1.4 hours per link. And that's when I started getting a bit miffed. And then obviously in 2020, the shit hits the fan, everything goes to pot. And also the time that it was taking me to get links live through this tactic. Back to 2021, 2022, we're looking more like we were in 2018. And this year we're down to 20 minutes per link. So for every single hour we spend on any activity associated with journal pitching, we expect 3 links live. And hopefully we can get it a bit faster. A couple of things happened here. In 2020, when it was getting to a point where it was taking forever to get something live, towards the end of that year, we started creating these pre-campaign preparation folders, which I'll talk about. That improved things considerably. And this year, we started using generative AI a lot in this work. 2020 and 2021 don't look great there, but it's actually worse than they look because we screwed up. So in 2020 and 2021, that pre-campaign time that we started spending, that for clients, it's month 1. That time that goes in month 1 to prepare these folders with tons of readily signed off content, we weren't including. It was being tracked as something else. So actually, this is much worse than it looks. 2020 and 2021 were a shit show. The biggest single roadblock to getting expert comment links live is speed, or a lack of speed entirely, particularly working with clients. Whenever you get a request through, there's a deadline associated. This is an example from Response Source that came through last week. The deadline is typically only ever a day or 2 in advance. Sometimes you get a week, but mostly it's quick stuff. And the deadline there is the 24th of November at 10 a.m., but that's not really the deadline. The deadline is the 24th of November at 10 a.m., or it's until they get the first decent reply. Now, some of these journalists will close those inquiries. So you'll get an email through saying, oh, this one's closed now, and that's nice. Most don't. So you can still be sitting there preparing comment for something that you've got no chance of ever getting live because they've already picked someone. And it's an absolute mammoth waste of time. Sign-off processes kill pace completely. And the reality is that the second you tell someone that there's a comment going to be associated with their name, maybe even a headshot, going in national press, sign-off processes just become insane. 641,000 years might be a small exaggeration, but frequently I would have a situation where I would send something to a client. I'm not asking them to write the comment, we've written it for them, I just need it signing off. And I'll say, if you can't get this to me by 4 o'clock today, don't bother, there's no point. And 3 weeks later, something will come back and they'll have changed 2 words or something. If you can't do this fast, you might as well not do it at all because it will just waste time. So we started what we call the good to go folder. And that's where we spend the first part of a campaign creating a folder that contains a ton of information. It's just a Google Drive folder. And anything in that Google Drive folder is considered signed off and ready to go and doesn't have to go back to a client for sign off again later. So when something comes through, we have what we need ready. We include bios, headshots, interviews, backstories. And we always want more than one expert. Whatever kind of business we're working with, I want the most senior person in the business who'll comment for me, preferably a CEO. I want the most senior HR person, the most senior marketing person, the most senior customer service person, sales. Because if we've got all those people from all those different departments, we don't just have to comment on one thing. We can comment on tons of different things. And HR is massive. Like, there's so many inquiries come through for HR related things that if you can get an HR expert in any business, you've got a really good shout at picking up links in press. One of the things we're then doing is pre-preparing comment based on topics that we think are going to come up. So we write an interview for our clients. It's just a Google form, a long Google form that's very tedious and laborious for them, but helps us. And we're asking for background information, we're asking for educational information, what their job involves, previous jobs they've done, other expertise they might have. It turned out the HR director for one of the companies we were working with was also like a qualified massage therapist. We've got other ones that are qualified personal trainers. And actually, you know, you can tie those in if you need to. So we're asking for loads of information with the caveat that anything they give us on that form could be used in a comment that goes to press. So if they don't want to comment on something, then don't reference it. The bulk of the questions, though, are asking for answers to requests that we anticipate will come through in the future. We can't get them all right, obviously. There's always going to be something comes up that you weren't expecting, something on the news agenda that is just wild and you couldn't have prepared for. But you can prepare for a lot of them without having to be some sort of psychic. Nothing is certain except death and taxes, right? But in the news, there's a lot of things pretty certain. Divorce and infidelity. If it's not Matt Hancock and Bill Gates, it's Justin Trudeau and Hugh Jackman. Online press has been reporting about celebrity divorces for as long as there has been news online. 2003, 2013, 10 years later in 2023, and it will continue to happen. And when you go and you read these articles, there's loads of them that include a comment from a divorce lawyer or a divorce counsellor. Loads of them, particularly with high wealth divorces, oh, what happens to all the money? What happens to the kids? And this just is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to prepare comment regardless of who it is getting divorced. The comment's probably fairly similar all the time. It's not the only theme. Celebrity weddings and engagements, they happen all the time and the press covers them all the time. And it isn't just tabloids that cover this. Very credible outlets will cover this kind of content as well. Celebrity weight loss or celebrity weight gain or someone getting really ripped. Every single time there's a celebrity body transformation, everybody covers it. And then when they find out which diet this person followed, they go out looking for the doctors and the nutritionists and the experts on whether this diet's actually safe. Is it safe? Is it okay? Is it good for you? Why does it work? Does it not work? They go looking for the same expertise over and over again, regardless of who's lost weight, gained weight, did anything. We've had comments pitched by psychologists, published for psychologists who've commented on a celebrity's weight gain following a separation. They're always looking for some kind of comment to try and make those articles credible. Businesses going bust happens all the time. If a business is big enough, that's national news. It's international news in some cases. People going on strike. If a strike pisses off enough people, ruins enough people's commutes, ruins people's plans, that's going to be national news every time. Extreme weather events. This is a favourite of mine. Every single year, we see the same content coming up when there's extreme weather events, like a cold snap this week. I mean, yeah, for sure. Sadly, what we're going to see now, probably every year for the rest of our lives, is new record high temperatures. But also, this is a recent one. Met Office warns of snow before Christmas as temperatures plummet in the UK. Christmas is the end of December. That's winter. The fact that it might snow, not usually news, but it is news. It's news like every single year. Every single winter, so many publications run content like this. When is it too cold to actually work? When can I go home? When can I leave the office? What temperature? When is it too cold for the kids to be in school? Every single cold snap. This will happen multiple times this year, again. And the reverse happens in heat waves. Oh, can I leave work if it's too hot? Do the kids have to be in school if it's too hot? What if it's too hot in my house? Do I have to work from home? And they cover them. Plenty of times I've been told by journalists, I can't cover that because we've just done it. We've covered it before, we've covered it last year, so I don't do it again. Extreme weather events are an exception. Lots of news agenda is an exception. This is Metro. August 2020, July 2022, July 2016, June 2017, May 2017. So within the space of a few weeks, they're covering the same content because there's been 2 heat waves. And that's not lazy journalism, it's what people want. It's because people go off to Google and search this every year, and the answer's the same. There's no legal temperature. It's just reasonable. So the articles are pretty much the same. They often quote somebody different, but the articles are pretty much the same. And they will happen over and over again. And they happen because Metro knows that people are looking for that information. And as a news site, they have to deliver it fresh. We're SEOs. We're pretty good at predicting what people might search during certain events, whether it's weather events or something else. We're good at that. Lots of news follows recurring themes, not just that. So within whatever sector you're working in, there will be recurring themes that come up time and time and time again that you can prepare for. So what we would do is we'd go into response source. And one of the reasons I really like response source a lot for UK stuff is that not only can you get the current inquiries, you can look back through historic inquiries that have closed. So we'd go into response source and we'd just search for the job title of the person we're representing. So let's say it's solicitor in this case. We're just going and manually looking through what has been published before or what's been requested before. What themes are being requested where the journalist wants a solicitor? Topics as well. So we had HR people for a while, and a big thing that we were noticing when we searched for HR director, HR manager, is that people were talking about workplace stress and burnout quite a lot. So when you get a theme, you can look at very specific angles within that theme. What's been requested before? And that's really useful to help you predict what's going to come up and therefore pre-prepare comment that you can pitch in seconds to a journalist with no sign-off. It is manual, it is laborious, it is boring and tedious and monotonous, but this is incredibly effective. This cut our time to secure a single link through journal request stuff astronomically. And the good news is AI loves manual and laborious. AI absolutely loves manual and laborious, so we're laughing. The first point I'm going to make here actually is that for a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about today, I'm using Bard. For real-time research, that to me is my go-to. And one of the first things we started using it for with any success was gaining insight about recurring news themes. And one of the biggest benefits to this is that this is now no longer just limited to the journalists who are requesting expertise through response source. And yeah, we weren't necessarily limited before. We could go to Google News and look through every single article that's ever quoted someone. But it's a pain in the arse, and it does require some manual analysis. So I can just ask Bard, tell me a few topics that healthcare journalists in the UK seem to write about every December. And it will give me them. And it's right. We can go back and manually cross-reference this on news sites ourselves. Winter A&E pressure every single year. Flu vaccination uptake, mental health, New Year's resolutions. We can go broader. We can just say, okay, what about the last year, the whole year? What have people been talking about? And this was an actual one for us. So we started working with a healthcare business where the founder is also a practicing GP. And we had a doctor then, which was amazing. And we found, long COVID, monkeypox, cost of living crisis and health, we'd actually thought of those ones already. What we hadn't thought of, which is bizarre because we work with some of the businesses, is CBD. Huge topic in the press over the last year and the year before, really. Massive. So we get ideas for topics, for general themes that are likely to require some healthcare expertise. And then when I've got those themes, I want specific angles. So here I'm just like, okay, well, if CBD is a topic, can you give me a list of recent articles in the UK news about CBD? And then I always specify that I want things as a table that I can just export to sheets, right? And eventually Bard starts just giving you tables by default because it figures out that's what you want. And yes, it will give me that information. It's not information that I couldn't have got before, but it's much, much quicker. So this healthcare company that we started working with, it was one of the first campaigns for us where we decided only to use AI, apart from a bit of manual fact checking, to do this research process. We didn't go into response source and do any manual searching. And only using pre-prepared comments. So there's other links where we go back, something unexpected to come up, we get a comment on the day, but only using pre-prepared comments. We've had CBD coverage in the Cosmopolitan magazine. We've had The Sun, we've had Express, we've got a few more due live. Without any requirement for interaction between me and the client. It's all ready, it's all in that folder, and that folder has taken a fraction of the time to put together that it did because Bard has done the legwork. I mentioned that what I do then when I've got topics and angles is I interview my clients. I send them that hefty Google form and get them to fill it in. Well, I discovered this was taking half a day in some cases writing the questions up. They would run into hundreds in some cases. AI can give us some ideas on that as well. So I'm switching to ChatGPT for this. I find ChatGPT better. And I'll go in with specific questions. So not just questions for a GP, but questions for a doctor about this topic. And I'll get them. I won't use them all. And some of them I've thought of myself anyway, but I'll use a lot of them. Interview questions to ask a solicitor about divorce laws. It's really in depth. ChatGPT is great at this. Great at giving us ideas for angles that we haven't previously thought about. And it's very, very extensive. I'm using AI to help me improve the quality of my pitch as well. I'm not using AI to write pitches per se, but I'll talk to you about that shortly. But whenever I'm pitching a journalist for the first time, so a journalist I've never worked with before, one of the things that I like to go and do is check out the previous comments that they've used. So our process historically would be response source again. Go and look up the journalist's name, Oliver Pickup, there he is. Go and look up all the things that he's previously requested, and then go and find those articles. Find the final article that went live in Google. Manual. And we want to see the comment. First of all, I want to know, did he link? Because if this guy doesn't link, I'm not asked. I don't want to deal with him. Is he linking? What kind of comment is he using? How long is the comment? What kind of language is he using? Is it plain English? Is it quite complex vocabulary? Is the audience quite savvy? Does it need to be explained to me like I'm a 5-year-old? That means that when we pitch this journalist, we can tailor the structure, the length, and the kind of language that we use to improve our comment. Give the journalist less editing to do. AI can speed this up sometimes. Now, if you're looking to pitch a very prominent journalist, you can just ask AI for a list of articles written by that journalist recently where they've quoted an outside expert. And Bard will bring you back a table, if you ask it to, with all those quotes in. Nice and easy. If it's a lesser known journalist, this doesn't work. But the issue with Bard is it pretends it's worked, so it'll give you a list of articles saying they're by this journalist, but when you click through, they're not at all. So for actually looking at specific journalists, this is still very much some improvement needed. But looking at a publication house style of comment, that's very feasible. So can you get me a list of articles from DigiDay where an outside expert has been quoted? And yes, it can. It will give me a title, it'll give me the quote used, the person who was quoted, the date, the link. Use with caution. This table had about 20 articles in it. And one thing I did notice is that one of them that had snuck in wasn't from that particular publication. It was 1 in 20, so it wouldn't have made a massive deal. But it's just to be aware of, excuse me, that some of these things do need some manual checking. I'm using AI in proactive comment pitching. So reactive pitching is great. A journalist goes to one of these platforms, they're already looking for a comment and the expertise that you've got. Fantastic, you're going to hit them at the right time with the right thing. But I like to proactively pitch experts to journalists too. So journalists that are already using experts like the people I'm representing, I like to pitch an introduction. Because I know that journalists like to mix it up. They don't want the same voices quoted over and over and over again. And it's very straightforward to just pitch them an intro and can be incredibly effective. So I go and find this list of journalists, and Bard is making this phenomenally quick. Can you provide me with a list of experts in UK news publications, list of articles related to crypto that have quoted an outside expert? There you go. And you get the quote, and you get the person who gave the quote. So you can do all your very quick analysis nice and easily. And I'm going looking for who's been quoted. I want to see people who've been quoted who are a similar profile to the people that I'm working with. If the BBC is quoting someone in government or someone from the Bank of England, then the CEO of the crypto company that I'm working with isn't a fit. But if they're quoting CEOs of other companies or heads of strategy, then great. If they've got a similar profile, I feel like it's good for me to go in and pitch. Then I'll go back and I will then go and look for all the articles recently that he has been quoted in. So I'll literally just ask Bard, can you provide me with a list of articles that have quoted Simon Morris, head of strategy at Blockworks recently? and I'll get a list. Nice and easy. A table. I can read all of his comments. I can go a step further and find out who the journalists that are writing these articles are, and literally just ask Bard, okay, can you add me the journalist name and the Twitter handle? And I go with Twitter handle for 2 reasons. First of all, email for any kind of pitching is my last choice. Always last choice. Inboxes are busy. I hate emails. Journalists hate emails. Twitter, if DMs are open, I find more effective and I find people more receptive. Some people also have email addresses in their Twitter bios, so you can also pull through bios into Bard really easily and check for that too. So I also use AI in building media lists for cold pitching in a very similar way to what I've just described there. I do less cold pitching than I've ever done in my link building career. Partly it's because it doesn't scale well. If you're just contacting someone you've never spoken to before and pitching something to them, naturally the results are going to be a bit hit and miss, right? Journalists are getting hundreds of emails a day. So even if yours is the greatest email in the world, there's still a good chance that your timing was off, they were away ill that day. There's so many things out of your control. And if you have to manually place every single link that comes through to your site, that lacks scale. It's got diminishing ROI. The more people who email journalists, the less sensitive to emails they become. But the primary reason that I do less cold pitching than I've ever done before is because I really hate it. I'm just not enough of a people person to contact people all day long. But when I have to do it, or my team has to do it, AI is proving pretty helpful. Media databases are awesome, okay? They're pricey though, but if you've got them, they're great. They can speed up grabbing email addresses and grabbing a list of journalists who write on a certain topic. But actually, outside of the UK and the US, I find they're not very comprehensive. They miss a lot of people. And they're out of date a lot of times. And I know the big media databases employ teams of people to contact journalists and get details up to date, but they've got the same problem we have, getting them to reply to an email. So there's always going to be out-of-date data in a media database. There's also too much focus on categorizing journalists too broadly. If you're pitching a study on insomnia during winter and why people don't sleep well, you want to pitch healthcare writers who are writing about general population's day-to-day health struggles. But in those media lists that you get from media databases, you're also going to find journalists who write about the healthcare industry, who write about health insurance, who write about health tech. They're not interested in people's health problems. So I was spending far too much time sifting through media databases, sifting through lists and exports to pull people out and check them. And that's tedious. AI can find journalists for you. Can you get me a list of 30 journalists at least that have written about CBD this year? Yeah, sure, no problem. You can go one further. You can ask them for a recent example of an article and their Twitter handle, Twitter bio if you like. Now, you can even get it to do sentiment analysis. For the particular thing that I was pitching around CBD, some of the journalists that I'd been looking at seemed a little anti-CBD. I don't want to pitch someone who is already pissed off about the existence of CBD for some reason about CBD. So I would historically have gotten somebody in the team to go through and check these articles and just make sure this isn't a journalist who's already pissed off about CBD for whatever reason. You know, there's journalists that write up it being a big scam and what have you. So I get Google Bard to do that now. Just give me the sentiment analysis. And I've cross-referenced this. It's not 100% right, but it's right the vast majority of the time. Enough that I'm happy to export that and use that. So now, and actually this is as of the end of September, the time that it's taken us to create media lists is less than a quarter of what it was. I haven't crunched the data for October and November. I think it's going to have come down more. AI is getting better at helping me to write pitch emails. This is quite a generic example. Not great. ChatGPT is better. If you give it a ton of information, so if you've got a study and you give it almost a press release, you can get quite a nice pitch out. The limitation right now is kind of what I mentioned at the beginning, is that AI content doesn't really have a real personality. Obviously, it's a robot. But when you ask it to do a friendly tone or a helpful tone, or it doesn't feel authentic. It just feels like they're putting in more exclamation marks. But it's giving ideas. So particularly for people who are perhaps not particularly great writers, not confident writers, but they're tasked with pitching for whatever reason, having the ability to use AI for ideas or a bit of the content from it is really helpful. I'm also anticipating that this is going to improve. So I think this time next year we could be saying, yeah, actually we're using pitches almost straight from AI. And finally, AI in image link building. So this is massively experimental for us at the minute, sort of 3-4 months really. We've done tons of stock image creation for link building for me, over a decade now. And the premise is really simple. We take a niche or a sector, we go and look for areas where there is a lack of really high quality free stock imagery, we create it. We license it under Creative Commons attribution licensing, we distribute it through Flickr, Wikimedia Commons. The images rank, people use them. By the terms of the license, they should be linking back to the copyright holder. Now, people are shit at crediting images, so that isn't the end of that. You do have to then track usage, find out whether people have actually credited already, and email them to request updated attribution if they haven't. But it's massively successful with very simple, bang average looking image banks. So this is one of our public facing test sites, MicroBizMag. And this was an image bank that kind of got started a bit, then didn't really get finished. We did lots around furlough. The images are pretty naff. Did loads of them, though, around furlough and COVID and returning to the office. And here's another example for a HR software company around burnout and stress in the workplace. The thing I like about image link building is it's great for sites that want links from multinational websites. Images transcend international barriers far better than text content does. So some of the links that we've built from these, things like Newsweek in Romania, I mean, that is such a crap image. Literally, I think it was like the second day of lockdown or something in my dining room. Crap. Working from home related images. But the diversity in the kind of websites that do link through this kind of tactic is what draws me to it over and over and over again. It's very straightforward to do. We use photography and illustration for this, and we do a combination of proactive image link building and reactive. So with the proactive stuff, what I'm talking about is that process I mentioned earlier. Go and identify a kind of niche where there's no free imagery. People are having to buy from stock image banks, or they're having to use the crap that's available on other websites, and make it. With the reactive stuff, that's more like responding to something happening now. So we were doing some image link building a few years ago in crypto. And we came into the office one morning, we'd already done really simple, before it got saturated, stock images of like Bitcoin medallions, Ethereum medallions, and we'd built a ton of links with them. It felt too easy. And then we came in the office one morning and the headline was Facebook announcing its cryptocurrency, Libra coin. I have no idea what happened to it. And all Facebook had done is announce they were launching it and put a logo out. And we used some of our older images we'd made around Bitcoin and Litecoin and photoshopped the Litecoin logo in. It was so shit. Like, it was so bad. But there was no other imagery in existence around this. So in those first 2 weeks following the announcement, we picked up tons of links from something that had taken 10 minutes and frankly looked pretty dismal. So then we started doing more reactive stuff. But the limitation is always how quickly you can respond. I'm not concerned about AI image quality. I use Midjourney mostly. I love Midjourney. And the quality of the images can be incredibly high. It can do photorealistic. It can do illustration. I'm not going to lie. I was producing images of goalkeepers not too long ago, and one of them had 3 arms. And I never asked for 3 arms, but he had 3 arms. So you've got to check. You've got to look for the small details. A bit of facial disfigurement here and there comes up quite a lot. But generally, it's pretty solid and improving fast. So we're testing that. We've got 3 image banks in rotation at the minute, in distribution at the minute, that are exclusively AI images. It's a little bit early for a full case study, but I'll write it up and put it out. Probably month 6. We're in month 3 or 4 with most of them. But what we have found at this stage is that the rate of usage and the way they rank in image search is no different than what we see with manually created human-made images. And what also kind of fascinated me is that our success rates in turning usage into a link when we request it, they're also no different. Nobody's questioning whether they're AI images or not. No one cares. Huge benefits in how quickly you can respond. This wasn't for this particular tactic, but a client last week was writing a big piece on their website about Jeremy Hunt's autumn statement and had no suitable imagery. And it took 30 seconds to get Midjourney to produce a caricature of Jeremy Hunt on the street in autumn with his briefcase. So I'm just going to put it out there that if Donald Trump does ever go to prison, I'm going to be in a link building gold mine. The main consideration here, it's not quality, it's copyright. This is going to develop and change a lot over the next year or two, I think. But right now, as it stands, the UK actually has some of the most progressive laws in terms of copyright ownership for computer-generated images. Under UK law, you can own the copyright to an AI-generated image. Under the terms of my Midjourney account, I can own it. So that's fine. It doesn't really, I don't have to operate any differently even by the book. That's not the case in other countries, including the US, where you technically cannot own the copyright of a computer-generated image. Yet, at least. I guess we'll see what happens. So it was for that reason that actually one of the clients I wanted to run these tests on, so we're running 2 tests, 2 on our own sites and 1 on a client site, so 3 in total. One of the clients I'd initially pitched about testing this, their biggest concern is that their head office is in the US and they can't technically own the copyright to those images. Some businesses don't care, is the reality. Some businesses are expecting this to be so up in the air and change so much anyway that they're not bothered. But some will. It will depend on the size of the company, I guess, and where they're located. So that's something to watch. Then, of course, if more people start using AI image generators and the quality is high, will demand for images fall? So usage rates per 100 images that we track, and we're tracking about 12,000 images, are up in 2023 versus 2022. People have always had other options than Creative Commons images, right? There's always been premium banks. But lots of the journalists who use these images have a budget of absolute zero for imagery. And that probably includes a Midjourney subscription or whatever they're using. But yeah, there's a possibility that demand might fall in the future. You know, we're SEOs. We've been adapting to big changes forever, so we'll just adapt. That's just what we do. So I guess in summary, AI for me isn't changing how I link build. It isn't changing the strategic approach. It isn't delivering creative or ideas. It isn't delivering something mind-blowing that I hadn't thought of before. But it is taking away the monotonous, tedious, previously quite manual, laborious crap that I hate doing. So I think for SEOs and people in link building in particular, it's exciting. The second you take away all that stuff that takes forever to do, your link building becomes more and more and more scalable. And this is only getting better. So for me, I'm pretty excited about it in link building. And that's me. Thank you.